Okay, good morning, everyone. I know it's early still, and people are gonna be flowing in probably in the next half hour, but it doesn't mean that we can't start. We're gonna be starting the session right now. And kicking off the immersion tracks for today. We're gonna start with a pretty cool schedule. We've never had this much content for immersion at the OCP, at the Global Summit before. So we're gonna kick off with three main aspects. So first of all, we're gonna have the project overview that John and I will be doing, and then we're getting into the industry trends, as well as a highlight for the immersion glossary, which is a development from the past couple of months. But to start with, let me introduce myself. I'm Rolf Brink, most of you will know me. I'm the project lead for the immersion project. I'm also the founder and owner of Promersion Consulting. I am in the high tech. I'm very active in the industry, and I collaborate with pretty much most of the stakeholders that we currently know. Next to me is John Bean.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. John Bean. I'm the CTO for Green Revolution Cooling. And I'm also involved heavily in OCP, but also in ASHRAE. And I work as the liaison between OCP immersion and what's going on in ASHRAE, involved with TC99, a 90.4 energy standard, and SSPC 127, which is a method of testing. Just a side note about SSPC 127, they will be starting to talk about immersion cooling as a method of test, so that is coming. Interesting point there. And similar to Rolf, my whole career has been in technology, focused for myself, though, certainly on just mission-critical cooling.
So the immersion project, it's quite a bit of background by now. And over time, the slide seems to be a little bit fake. Maybe there's something that can be done on it. But yeah, we are currently the biggest project in open compute, right? And that is quite something. This is the most active community. It also means that there is a lot that needs to be done, right? Otherwise you don't get so many volunteers to do so much. Right now, the project consists of a large variety of work streams focusing on requirements, on material compatibility, on challenges, TCO, power distribution. There's a whole lot that we're currently doing, and we're going to be hearing about 95% of everything that is being done. The remaining 5% is stuff that has started off or has got off the ground in the past few months that didn't get time enough to really get on the schedule. But we'll be hearing of that in the community calls. And with that, I just want to highlight one of the most important and more strategic work streams that we have. John, you want to do that?
Yeah, so with a big community, it's important to manage the activity of the team. And we do this through some active engagement with the community. And we have the Immersion Hurdles work stream, and their job is to work with the community, identifying challenges for implementing and adopting immersion cooling. And once they've done that, and the ideation comes from the community, they work on really defining it, putting together a problem statement, identifying what kind of effort it might take to really bring this to some level of completion for the industry to give guidance. And then the next thing is they prepare a workstream requirements document, and we go and then we evaluate that, and we look to get a leader. It's always important when we kick off a new work stream that we have a leader for that. So one of the key steps is once the work project is introduced is get a call for leaders. And once we have the leaders, then we will schedule the first call and get some participants involved to support the leader. And then we have an onboarding meeting with the leader as well, because a lot of times coming into OCP, there are some processes and procedures that we like to follow. So somebody just coming in for their first time, they do need a little bit of onboarding to understand how to navigate the water, so to speak. But Rolf and myself and others are always there to support. Once that's done, there is broad community engagement. There are community calls where we share what's being done, get feedback, kind of a closed loop operation. And ultimately, the end goal is to drive some kind of collateral that we can hand off, whether it be a base specification, a white paper, or whatever, that can communicate and be stored for the industry to understand as a whole.
And that's exactly what we've been doing over the past years, and the outcome of that can be found on our wiki page, right? We have a wiki page that is on the OCP website. This wiki page contains all the work streams that we have. It contains information on how to join. It's really easy to do. If you got a mobile device, you should be able to scan it, although the resolution is a little bit off at the moment, so maybe, but it will be in the presentations that you can download as well. It also contains an overview of all the contributions that have come out the immersion community, including all the call details. So joining these groups is incredibly simple. It's just a matter of dialing in, showing up, and opening your mouth. Preferably listen a bit as well, but interact, engage. This is what the workstream leads and the project leads really need the most. There is no such thing as stupid questions. There's no such thing as dumb questions. The only stupid question is that one that you're not asking, right? So go ahead, engage and interact because the community needs it. It also makes it easier for others to work together.
So we're not going to cover the tiles here in any great detail. We'll speak a little bit more as we introduce the topics, but this is a nice snapshot of all of the content that you're going to be seeing today related to immersion. And you can look at this. We have some 50 topics, and then after this, there's 3 more. So there is a lot of content that this big group has pulled together, and we'll be touching it a bit more.
So we're going to start right after this opening session. We're going to be starting with the signal integrity and immersion workstream. So that's one of the high-tech work streams that we have. Really cool stuff, really interesting stuff. For some, it's a subject matter that I myself am not an expert in, but Andy and Kai are, and they're going to be informing you about what it is, what we're talking about when we're looking at signal integrity and why it's so incredibly important. After that, we're getting into the TCO modeling, which is the workstream led by Alison and Edward. And they're taking point on a TCO model that we're hoping to publish soon that is open in nature, that can be used by anyone to get an idea of where these cost savings are that are associated with adoption of immersion cooling. And then we have a really good one, a really nice one. That's the challenges group. It is so incredibly important. If you want to bring an industry further, you have to understand why somebody would not want to work with it, because that allows you to focus on the stuff that you really need to do and really need to improve and really need to work on. So that is a challenges work stream that is led by Raul Alvarez and David Guionazayan. And it's going to be joined with somebody from the warranties group, which is very closely aligned with the hurdles work stream. It's one of the more recent work streams, led by Michael Cordell and Rich Lappenbush. They will be joining on the stage to explain some of these major hurdles.
Yeah, and then we will be looking at unifying the fluids, materials, and immersion requirements. These are 3 very important subject matters. I mean, we're going to cover a lot of important ones, but it's critical that these things hang together, that we don't see things that are kind of leading you down to one conclusion in one document and then maybe not supportive in the other one. So we'll have Puneeth, Peter, and Rolf speaking to this, but making sure all this stuff hangs together and people aren't reading one document and then the next, and they're like, okay, these don't align, could be a problem. So important activity going on there. Power distribution. That's a big challenge, and certainly the OCP power architecture, ORV3, ORV2, lends itself very beautifully to immersion cooling. You know, you're able to slide the servers in, plug them in on the power distribution bus bar, simplifies the heck out of cable management. So there's a lot of activity going on in this, and Oriol and Kevin will be speaking to the power distribution for immersion. We are going to be excited about them sharing some of the extra capabilities that immersion comes with for these technologies, so that'll be interesting. And then similarly, on that topic, Molex will be doing a presentation by Dennis speaking to the high power connectors in the immersion environment and speaking to, you know, some of the materials compatibility, some of the power capacity considerations, et cetera. So that'll be a great presentation as well.
Right, and after that we're gonna start with the very first sneak peek at a new work stream led by Peter Liu from America. He's going to be talking about a hands-on approach towards evaluating components with immersion cooling. What does it take? What is the big challenge for a component manufacturer to get close to something that might be called certified for immersion? Right? This is a huge challenge in the industry, and it's good that we're going to be focusing on this. Peter Liu is going to be introducing the work stream that he's kicking off within the community as well. That will be followed by a presentation by Meta. Meta and immersion cooling. It's the first time we're going to hear that combination here in this forum, which is absolutely exciting and fantastic. Meta has been looking into immersion cooling, and Cheng Shen and Yayati Atawala from Meta will be presenting on this and their views on the immersion landscape.
Yeah, and then we will be discussing the OAI, which is the Open Accelerator interface and the Open Accelerator modules. And I think we all understand with everything going on with AI, that we're seeing these GPU combinations with some CPUs controlling them is a pretty critical need for the industry moving forward. These guys do have some challenges, and they've came to the immersion group to help work with them to address some of the challenges addressing this, and that'll be an interesting presentation. Intel, it is hard to believe that we've got a year of rear view mirror perspective now on their base fluid specification that they contributed to OCP. And certainly this document has got a lot of comment, a lot of review, and it's been very beneficial. And I think we can anticipate that we'll probably get some updates on some of the pending changes or tweaks to it, as well as a vision for the future there as well. So that will be a good session as well. And then we have the panel session for two-phase immersion cooling. So there's been a lot of buzz out there about PFAS challenges. And the topic is considerably more nuanced than some people might think it would be. So I'm pretty confident that Rolf, Sam, Mohan, and Cheng will bring some perspective to the two-phase, and hope maybe get a little bit better understanding of what the PFAS topic really is saying and meaning and implying to the immersion application.
I just need to, because I just noticed that there's one name missing. The slide was prepared before we had the panel complete. Brendan Marshall from Camus will be joining us on the panel as well. We're going to need to move up, move at a little bit higher rate, but I think that's good. We're going to have another panel session by Meta. This time it's going to be focused on the cooling temperatures across the facility. How we're going to be raising that within the industry, and obviously that's closely tied to liquid cooling as well. Followed by hardware management, which is a work stream that sits within cooling environments, closely aligned with the immersion project as well. Project that is managed by Mick Jones, but he's now based in Australia. So he's not able to join us. So he's been covered by Jeff Arthur and John Leung. Then we're going to have a short break, and we'll move on to some Intel insights regarding hardware management for liquid cooling. So it's a bit broader than just immersion. And then we're going to move to the final sessions of the day.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about some experimental observations and testing of seismic isolation for immersion cooling. Naomi is going to be presenting that. She spoke at the last community call. This is going to be more in-depth subject coverage there. Going to be great. Heat reuse project updates. You know, we'll have Cosimo and Jamie giving us some updates on where the industry is at with heat reuse. And then we'll close out with an actual presentation on heat reuse and the innovations for heating city swimming pools. So very important within our ecosystem to make the most of everything we have, and reuse of thermal energy is a pretty key thing. And with that, I'm going to introduce Rolf to take it from here. He's going to be covering advanced immersion cooling industry trends, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much, John. I'm going to be giving some industry insights. So what's happening with immersion in the industry? What does this market look like? And this really is an exciting topic because also on Monday, when I gave in the keynote, I already showed some market figures, some industry figures. I'm going to be showing some industry figures for specifically for immersion as well, right? So I think we all know the computational demand is driving the necessity for liquid cooling. And immersion, of course, is a very important technology within that liquid cooling domain. It's driven by a continuous technology innovation, driven to higher efficiency, a drive for higher space effectiveness, improving TCOs, and obviously one of the big points, and that was also echoed by some of the keynote speakers on Monday, is the pressure on the water consumption, right? Furthermore, the whole industry, end users, facilities, is under they're all under tremendous pressure to achieve sustainability goals, lowering greenhouse gases, enabling heat reuse. And this is further strengthened by regulatory actions across the world, across various regions. So with that drive to more efficiency, immersion cooling in the industry is really taking off. Right now, and this is a real interesting point, on Monday I showed the graph for the current market value this year being topping the 1 billion for liquid cooling. The interesting thing is immersion cooling is actually 50% of that market value. I was really surprised with that conclusion of all the market research. But immersion cooling is actually 50% of that market revenue. Then don't make the mistake of thinking that there is as many immersion units out there as there are cold plates, right? That is not how it works. These are revenue numbers, and obviously one tank or one immersion rack has a completely different value proposition compared to cold plate. And obviously cold plates are currently becoming commoditized. They are now transitioning into commodity. That also means that the price per unit is going down. That puts the revenues under pressure while the actual numbers are going up significantly, right? And this is actually a very interesting trend. What we also have to remember that this market forecast is only fractional to the actual addressable market, right? So this is just barely nothing of what can be done in the market with liquid cooling. And like I also said on Monday, and this really goes into immersion in particular, a major adoption event may significantly affect any kind of market analysis. Right? If Meta suddenly decides next year to put all their money in immersion and roll out 500 data centers with immersion technology, obviously that's going to change every outlook. Right? Nobody knows what's going to happen and how fast these things gonna work. But one thing I do know for certain, and that is that immersion by itself has to start showing some rapid innovation cycles. This is a time where, while all the eyes are on us as an immersion industry, that we have to show that we're ready for the next steps, that we're ready for the next stages, for the next levels of chips, next levels of compute. Can be easily demonstrated. It's a great demonstrator here at the event as well of how simple it is to multiply the capabilities for processor density or thermal density, right? But suffice to say, by 2030, we may be looking at a market value of about 6 billion for immersion. And there are various volatility studies. I touched upon that on Monday as well. I'm not going to get into the details of those, but yeah, it has the indication that those are conservative numbers. So what is holding us back? What is holding immersion back? Why are we stuck in this fraction of the addressable market? That's because there are significant industry challenges that we need to pick up here in OCP as well. That goes into standardization, it goes into transparency for cost of ownership, but also transparency on reliability. It's not for nothing that in this project there is so much focus on these topics as well. Without tackling these challenges and this lack of transparency and this lack of knowledge in certain areas still, immersion cannot scale. So when we're looking at the timelines and the growth projections for immersion, this is one of the big variables. When are these challenges going to be tackled? Is it next year or is it 4 years from now? And that massively impacts the likelihood and the potential volume of an immersion market. And the trends are also underlined by a market study from Uptime. I think most of you will probably be familiar with the recent publication from Uptime, where they did this market analysis and showing the reasons why companies would be interested in liquid cooling and how the market is perceiving those. And vendor support and warranty and environmental impact and regulatory compliance were really high on that list. But one of the other things that very often gets overlooked is that, hey, this is an industry that consists of startups. Even the biggest liquid cooling supplier is actually still a startup or scale-up. The biggest challenge for any startup scale-up is scaling the manufacturing. It doesn't matter how much money you feed into a startup or scale-up. Scaling up a supply chain or a manufacturing supply chain takes a lot of time, and that is perceived as one of the biggest risks in this industry. Now, with our project, we are actively supporting a global transition to liquid cooling, in particular here for immersion cooling. But please remember that within OCP, we're collaboratively working on liquid cooling, right? So with the immersion project, we're not aiming to we're not only about immersion. Yes, in immersion we are about immersion, but it's not immersion by itself that counts. We're part of cooling environments, and we need to resolve a lot of challenges together and jointly. So, having said that, I would like to get Rich Lappenbush with me on stage, because there's something that we've been doing over the past months in OCP. Rich, maybe you can do the introduction of this.
Absolutely. So we got this on? Yeah.
It should be.
Okay. So one of the key things that we ran into very early, and I think everybody in the room is quite aware of this, is warranties differ quite greatly in this space. And when you look at that, you go, everybody's making their own risk assessment individually as companies. But one of the challenges is, as companies, we don't often share the same terminology. So when you're reading a warranty or a service level agreement for your colo or anything else, more mature industries have consistent terminology. And that's because the attorneys and paralegals have got together and agreed on a common set of terms. And these come out of ASHRAE, they come out of SMPTE, they come out of industry consortia. And I realized quite quickly that this is one of the key areas, and I engaged Rolf and said, hey, I don't think we need a whole work group, but we definitely need a project here to quickly and rapidly get to a common glossary. And the reason for that is your attorneys, my attorneys, these attorneys, they're not so good at asking for help. And one of the things they do is they'll make something up if they don't have subject matter expertise at their disposal. And half of us aren't directly sitting next to our attorneys. So it's difficult for them to ask for help. They often make stuff up, and then you have to unwind it. As, you know, from my personal perspective, having to harmonize, maybe a dozen warranties and then offer that to market, I look at that and go, oh, that's going to be a big problem for the customer. So we look at this and we say, it's important. Whether it's in a rack or a tank, we need to have a consistent set of terminology. I invite all of you to consider how your particular area of subject matter expertise could benefit this particular table. It's a table right now. It's going to grow over time. It's going to have the benefit of all your feedback. But I'd say we did a pretty good job of hitting 80-20, getting it very, very close. And I encourage you to join our warranty work stream and also participate in the contributions to the table. as you invent new areas, invent new cables, invent new fluids, invent new pumps, and all these other things that you see out on the floor. It's an amazing opportunity, but I think it's really important we think about the end customer and how difficult it is for them to rationalize all this when they have to read their warranties. So let's try to make it as easy as we can. Thank you.
All right, great. And with that, I'd like to wrap this up, this introduction for today. Please join the various work streams. We would love to get your support. We need your help. We need as many voices as we can to represent the broader industry and help shape the future for immersion cooling. I would like to open the floor for any potential questions. We have, I think, 3 more minutes before we're going to shut this down and get ready for the next speaker. So if there's any questions, please approach the microphones and ask away. And we're all here to respond to you.
As usual, transparency normally is associated with third-party certification, because I mean, otherwise you don't. Do you see what body do you see that could be in charge of these third-party certification for liquid cooling?
That's a great question. So. With the Immersion Requirements group, we're actively working together with UL. The guys from UL have been co-leads in some of these work streams as well in the past. And this is really regional. So what we are stimulating within this ecosystem with for example, the Immersion Requirements is the transparency on individual technologies from different manufacturers. And we set a minimum baseline that everything from an energy engineering point of view should and must comply with before you should even consider deploying something in a facility, right? And that is being harmonized and used by organizations like UL to create their own certification products on. And we're hoping that that will be the case with other work products that we produce within OCP as well. Because, hey, there's not much else, there's not really any other platforms that are doing this. So right now, OCP is the biggest source of information when it comes to liquid cooling in the industry. Does that answer your question, Cosimo? Thank you. Anyone else with a question? All right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We're going to get ready for the next presentation.